tragic backstories. Not just protagonists, but it's the one that matters considering that it's the current topic. I would say that there are ways to make the tragedy fit the story instead of it trying to manipulate the reader into feeling certain emotions towards the character. I mentioned the sympathetic villain and how I find that unnecessary or downright insulting, robbing the villain of the ability to just be evil. Of course, that it's not always the case. Sometimes it fits very well. Sometimes it actually creates an even better villain. But on the subject of protagonists, it's very similar in my eyes. As I've said, I don't want my protagonist to be some chosen one, and that in many cases comes with various circumstances surrounding the character's birth and so on. I don't want to use tactics that I might consider underhanded to garner sympathy for my protagonist. Either there are a few just in terms of the starting point, being a slave, orphan, some sort of an incurable disease. I'm not saying that none of that can ever happen in my stories, even to the protagonist, but I don't want to use it to evoke cheap emotions. I know that I can do that to myself. Sometimes when I think of various settings, scenarios that aren't worth writing down, I can make myself feel certain way using certain storytelling mechanics, but they never last and seem to be kind of one-time use. Honestly, on the other hand, I don't find a protagonist that comes from some extremely comfortable starting point that much more attractive. So it's again a topic that I have no real conclusion for, and as I've mentioned many times before, it needs some sort of balance. I don't want to create a protagonist, then stick a label on his head and tell myself, the intended reader, to feel bad for him, even when those circumstances, that backstory ends up playing no role whatsoever in the overall story. So when I do introduce something like that, even when it comes to side characters, it should have consequences on the entire picture without being just a kickstart or an initial motivation for the protagonist to do something, move towards something or somewhere else, and then promptly forgotten by the story itself. I will probably come back to this later when I'm talking about side characters directly, but for now I am done with the intro, and now for more adventures of Whistler and Freddy. Whistler managed to escape, and in the base of the Brotherhood of the Cat's Paw, Bohosh is desperately struggling, being tied to that plank of wood. With one final heroic push, he manages to break off a portion of it, which, considering he has his hands tied behind his back as well, sends him tumbling right into the floor. But a small injury like that cannot stop him. Nothing can slow him down. So in his green overall, He rushes towards the flags that he has to raise manually since the ropes connecting them to the levers were cut off. Once more, something seems to stand in his way, this time a sill that the plank of wood still hanging off his leg gets caught on, but he gets up, promises vengeance on Whistler, and finally manages to reach the flags, and the black flag of betrayal is up. Now we see Longpole, Bristles, and Fatty somewhere else. They are passing by the observation post number 13 that they can see the flags from. So Longpole sends Bristles to check it out just in case something is happening at the base, which Bristles replies to with "Sure, boss," which is slightly weird because I do remember that one episode where Longpole failed to storm the fortress of the Rapid Arrows and was forced to capitulate, and Bristles was supposed to replace him as the leader of the Brotherhood, but maybe something happened off the screen and Longpole reclaimed his position. Well, nevertheless, Bristles reaches the lookout and sees the black flag, so he runs down the stairs to warn Longpole. That sends Fatty into a desperate run for his life, surprisingly fast for someone of his stature. He is staying ahead, but then runs into a group of boys who stop him and begin an interrogation. When Longpole and Bristles reaches these new boys, they are vivid, telling them that Fatty is their captive, but the leader of the boys declares that that's no longer the case and Fatty is being held by them club called Sapphire Head, a name Longpole recognizes as an upstart club that's being talked around almost as much as the Rapid Arrows themselves. Their leader admits that they are still far away from the glory of the Rapid Arrows, but they are striving to be as honorable as them, so they offer Longpole a ransom, Fatty, which is a cat, not something that I personally agree with. Nevertheless, Fatty is traded for a location, and then the Brotherhood leaves one last threat to Fatty that he'll be struck by their spell in 2 weeks, and then the leader of the Sapphire Head introduces himself as Seth and gives Fatty his freedom. He is rather grateful, but asks the boys if they know where the Rapid Arrows are since he overheard some of the Brotherhood's plans and wants to warn them. So the Sapphire Head agrees to lead him to the Rapid Arrows, but he'll be blindfolded to make sure that he won't be able to find them by himself. They take shortcuts over the fences using ladders through yards and passageways as well. And then they finally reach the Rapid Arrows club room, knocking on the door that it's them, the Firehead, and that they are bringing them a boy with some essential message, almost making it sound like a life or death situation. It's Speedy who opens the door, slightly disgruntled, then he notices it's the Sapphire Head, which apparently is known club to the members of the Rapid Arrows Club, and so he invites them in. They remove Fatty's blindfold, and he is as if struck by lightning when he finally sees his heroes with his own eyes. And this is where I'm going to stop for today. Again, managed to talk about something that I wanted to get out there and remind myself of. Only managed to Rapid Arrow's adventures, but hopefully next time I'll be able to do a bit better. Anyway, this is where I'm going to stop for today, and next time, more Rapid Arrows, more adventures of Fatty and Whistler, and their meeting with legends of the Yaroslav Foglar's world. So, next time in the next video.